I am here because as I said, the crime rate's going up. It needs to be stopped, and it has to be, it's the policies within the district attorney's office that's causing the problems. It's not the employees, it's the policies. You know, despite what people are trying to make it seem, we can straighten out the 6th Judicial District and make it a much safer place. Right now, depending upon the polls you look at, either Deming or Silver City are consistently in the top 10 most dangerous cities in the most dangerous state. We can change that, and it's my goal by the end of my first term to get both of those cities off of that list. The chief law enforcement of the district, in fact, it's shocking how much power they have and how much responsibility they have. If you think about it, the entire safety of the community comes from the policies that are set in place by the district attorney. If the safety of the community, listen carefully, the safety of the community is a direct proportion to the quality of the relationship between the district attorney's office and law enforcement. If you have a bad relationship in those two things, guess who suffers? I mean, you can go to war with the police. Who suffers? The community. You're right. Everybody suffers. You know, they're not always going to agree with me, but I'm willing to bet that we both will listen to each other. Understand, for example, that if I get a domestic violence case and plead it down to a simple battery, guess what happens to the defendant in that domestic violence case? Nothing. If, however, I do something where he or she's placed on anything other than a battery, they have to go to counseling. So as a public servant, I have to understand the law. I have to teach the law. I have to teach the law to people. I have to learn from people. I have to meet with people. I expect that I will be going county to county, frankly, meeting with, I mean, right now, if you look at the website, we're calling it a conversation with the candidate. You know, it can be a talk with the district attorney, a discussion with the district attorney. I expect to go county to county regularly, meeting with the people to find out what their concerns are and helping them and developing a safer community for everybody involved. I'm going to name the most insidious crime that happens here, and that is drugs. How many of you have a friend, a family member that has been negatively affected by drugs? Virtually everybody, if we're being honest. Drugs, it's like throwing a rock into a pond. It ripples out. Drug traffickers cause addicts. Addicts steal things. They rob people. They burglarize houses. They share a little bit of drugs so that they can buy their own drugs for nothing, you know, so they're basically exchanging. Drugs are the scourge of this district. However, some crimes are so insidious that the legislature has entered mandatory penalties. For example, a person, the first time somebody's convicted of trafficking drugs, they can be sentenced anywhere from probation up to 9 years in the Department of Corrections. The legislature thinks drugs are so bad, they made a special class of crime for them. The second time somebody is convicted of drug trafficking, it is a mandatory, no choice. This is from the legislature in Santa Fe. Mandatory 18 years in the Department of Corrections. This office right now is taking those second offenses, and instead of going to trial on them, they're reducing them. And those people are not doing it. Instead, they're coming out, they're making new addicts, they're killing new people. That's got to stop. Thank you. I would describe my relationship with law enforcement as good. As if you follow, the four of you who follow social media, I'm sure realize that I've been endorsed by both the Silver City Police Department and the Grant County Sheriff's Office. I've got a lot of support in the other counties as well.
Do you plan to invite law enforcement into your office to staff cases together? What are the advantages, disadvantages of doing that? How do you approach it?
So the short answer to that is yes. Anybody here heard of Ralph Waldo Emerson? He has a saying that's attributed to him. What you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. What you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. He saw it in 2020. He went to the Silver City Police Department, asked for their endorsement. They told him, no, we're endorsing Norm Wheeler. He went to the Grant County Sheriff's Office and asked for their endorsement. They said, no, we're endorsing Norm Wheeler. Then we got to here's where the big rift came. We get to the debate and he said almost an identical thing. One thing you discover about law enforcement officers is they expect people like us to tell them the truth. We can't lie to them. We have to be impeccable. That's one of his favorite words. After he won that election, and actually both officers from both agencies took out an ad saying he didn't tell the truth. It's in your paper. He didn't tell the truth. He sought our endorsement. We said, no, we're endorsing Norm Wheeler. The Silver City Police Department took a picture with me. When he came into office, he demanded to know who those people were in that picture. He tried to get them prohibited from testifying in trials. The officer from the Grant County Sheriff's Office that put that ad in the paper, there was I think it was a murder trial. He was the star witness for the preliminary hearing. He forbade him to testify.
Republican.
Okay, recently, if you're paying attention to what's going on in court, there's been a big brouhaha because, and justifiably, I think, that two officers, when you watch the body camera, two officers went to execute an arrest warrant. They show up at that location. The defendant, the target of the warrant, doesn't want to come out. And he eventually comes out with a knife and goes after these two police officers. And he's saying things like, just shoot me. And frankly, that guy is probably fortunate he did not get shot. He's fortunate, and imagine what would happen then. I know that in recent propaganda Mr. Renteria has put out that he claims that they have expanded their victim advocates to include victims of all crimes except police, evidently. Police can be attacked, battered, victims, and they're not covered under Mr. Renteria's definition of the Crime Victims Act. Now, technically, if you look at the statute, it says if you're the victim of an aggravated assault, which is a felony, which is what this case involved, you are entitled to rights under the Crime Victims Act. However, the charge in this particular case was aggravated assault against a police officer, which is in essence the exact same charge, but it's a different statute number. His position is and has been that because it's not aggravated assault against the citizen. So next time, I guess officers, if you want to be protected under the Crime Victims Act, don't charge aggravated assault against a police officer. Exact same classic crime, charge aggravated assault. And frankly, it's one less element to prove, and it's easier in trial should they ever decide to go to trial. I said earlier, unfortunately, there are some officers that shouldn't be officers. And if officers aren't telling you the truth, they deserve the consequences. However, I want to go a step further. The same logic applies to attorneys. Attorneys can't go into a courtroom and lie. Now, attorneys are this special character. Attorneys, for example, if I know an attorney lies, that's a breach of ethics. I actually have to report that attorney. I can't ignore it. I can't lie to protect him. And you have to have the character. You can't get so involved that you cannot want to win at all costs. That's not fair. That's not constitutional. That's not justice. I don't think anybody is saying you take everything to trial. I'm certainly not saying that. What I'm saying, however, is that some crimes are so insidious, heinous, that you have to take them to trial. There are about 800 felony cases filed annually in the 6th Judicial District. 800. In 2021, 8 of those got taken to trial. In 2022, 9 of them got taken to trial. In 2023, 4 of them got taken to trial. So far this year, 8, but the 6th did 7 of the 8, and the other years the 6th didn't do all of them. So out of about 3,200 cases, felony cases that have been filed, what's that add up to? About 17, 25, 29 cases out of 3,200 cases taken to trial. Trials are tough, but you have to learn how to do them. That's part of justice. I would encourage you to look at one of my favorite things, and once again, for the 4 of you in social media, in my office is a plaque that talks about the man in the arena. Sometimes you get in a fight, you bloody a fight, you get bloodied in a fight, you're not always going to win. But I can tell you, every single case you don't take to trial, you're not going to win. None of them. These cases, and this is one of those things that you oftentimes don't think about the DA. So, we get so wrapped up in the DA's a prosecutor prosecuting criminal cases. There is an absolute need for the DA to understand and deal with mental illness. Now, I checked recently. I believe that people with mental illness should not, in fact, be placed into jail. However, that is a training issue. And what do I mean by a training issue? Officers, in all their free time, they have to learn to be social workers. They show up, somebody's having a psychotic episode. They have 2 choices. They can take them to jail or try to deal with an involuntary commitment. But I can tell you I don't think there's been an involuntary commitment filed since I left the office. So that's been completely taken off. So I am going to retrain the prosecutors how to deal with those types of cases so those people don't end up in jail. What happens now, if it's not done correctly, the officer shows up, an evaluation isn't done, and the person, instead of ending up at a hospital, they end up in jail. It's been a little bit harder, after the closure of the behavioral health unit here at the hospital. It's still workable. And I recently had a conversation with Dr. Arizaga, who heads all of that up. And it is feasible. We've just, we've got to sit down and just, get it done. We've got to retrain the officers so that they know what they can do. I had a person come to me at the rodeo who was just livid. He said, my father-in-law got such a psychotic state, he was threatening people with a gun. I called twice. I was told the only person who can help you is the district attorney. I called that office twice and said it's a life or death issue. I was promised a call back both times. I never got a call back. Well, what happened to your father-in-law? He shot himself. He's dead. So this question didn't come up tonight, but I'm going to bring it up. The facts that are contained in those Grant County Beat articles, do you know where those facts come from? IPRA's Inspection of Public Record Act demands. Those figures are accurate. Now, there's a couple of things that I would, interpretations of them I would disagree with. And other than calling them lies, he hasn't disputed any of the facts. Today, he mentioned a 60 versus 40. Subject to those IPRAs, we recovered 3 EEOC complaints filed against him. One of them, I'm sure you know, you paid off $40,000 for. I had heard there was at least one more. I think there's 2 more actually. But last week I was able to confirm that another person who still works at his office filed an EEOC complaint against him that he didn't divulge. And we promptly filed another another IPRA request. Now, his campaign filed an IPRA against me asking for 14 years of records. That was answered within a week, maybe 10 days. This request, I can tell you, that just got filed should take like 10 minutes to gather the information. They say, oh, we can't provide that information till November 4th. I think it's suspicious. We also asked for salary information on this person because his IPRA disappears, and it appears to me, looking at the Sunshine portal, that there's been a significant increase in pay.